Good. Hey, this is Rich. I'm ready to get on with number 2005, number 5s. Okay? And at the beginning of that time period, I was just looking for a full, honest disclosure. This could have all been in the healthiest context. And I was put in to a very powerful, and I do not know the exact title or legalities or immunity or anything. And he wanted to get a feel of what I was looking for, and that's what I communicated. I was looking for a full disclosure. And instead, they put me in touch with a human studies professor after the psychiatrist stated there is no mental illness on me. The number ones become twos. And I continued to attempt to contact the U.S. Department of Education, Labor, and Justice at the highest level. And I understand that these were entrusted servants that would render those services. Certainly that's what would have happened in Lake County, without any question. You would have heard what I said. Your attention span wouldn't have been so short to have an ulterior motive. And I did finally contact the easiest one to file the discrimination report, and it was the U.S. Department of Education. I was working on also the U.S. Department of Labor and Justice. And I then was referred as the medical even got louder, and I'm sure that is about as powerful as it can get as far as legalities. A human studies professor, more specifically, a mental health woman who I find a human studies professor, by what I've mentioned, disclosing my past and earlier reviews, amazing. And right off the bat, when I mentioned what I was seeking, professional career counseling related to the experience I have, she did not allow me to speak any further. None. I was simply seeking a PhD in vocational psychology, and she did every bit of, she had me completely under control. There was absolutely no reciprocal relating in any manner that would not be allowed. It's very obvious what's happened here. And they continued building a legal case that they initially had started off with that makes me appear as an invalid. They continued on that course. There was no corrections. There was nothing of what would have been really the healthiest context. I was under so much control that I understand. We went on education. That is not what I was looking for. And she wouldn't even listen. She had me under complete control. And there was no reason for that with that type of experience. So I then was forced into survival, actually, at that point of absolute survival, completely disregarding anything about the past 45 years. And I understand I'm quite a business professional in that respect, completely disregarded, because the legal arm and building the strongest legal case. I was not looking for education. It was even simpler than that. It was a PhD in vocational. It was not allowed. And at a certain point, when this continued to progress and my savings was being depleted, I then met again with Mrs. Mobley and attempted to, and right off the bat, she would not listen. She told me, get out of there. That's what she did. And that immediately put me in touch with Jim Harris III. Very obvious that I was not seeking education. These are all invalidated assumptions. If one single person would have listened, I would have gotten professional career counseling. If they really were well-to-do people, instead of ulterior motives, or it was impossible to relate. in a healthiest context. They had ulterior motives, and the detention span is so incredibly short. I never did ever commit a psychological disorder, but that is all it is. Legally binding, presented to a judge that I'm that way. Not according to that. I wish I had contacted the College Lake County up north and headed back up north immediately. I stayed down here, and I continued 3 times a year to contact Jim Harris III. And I was really expecting what the law was intended to serve, but I came across I did not come across that way. I honestly have to say I never did commit a psychological disorder. You would literally have to put me in a state of survival at that point, where there was no reason. It wouldn't cost them anything, most likely. It would have been minimal. These are the ones, and the two is well beyond someone from the Chicagoland North Shore. That becomes history. I don't believe it. And I continue to clearly state, what the intended purpose of the law was meant to serve, and all it would be was mental illness, mental illness. They have a human studies professor backing that up. And that went on through 2007. Now, at this point, in earlier disclosures, yes, absolutely, I don't even question Alan Markle has falsified those medical records initially. The hard copy clearly discloses falsified medical records right off from the start. There was absolutely no misunderstanding. I never did commit a disorder. Never. That's all it is. The ones become the twos. And it has nothing to do with the two. The most serious form of boundary violations. And we continued on. I will have to pull the actual hard copies up to through 2008. I will actually have to pull the hard copies of those specific dates, if they're even available. But I think I can get that together, of actually what was on each specific date related to what I understand is a reciprocal agreement of professional management, and certainly in the most professional and healthiest context, in a reciprocal agreement. Well beyond the capacity. You are completely surrendered, that anything that it is absolute. I never, those medical records, for sure, without any question, 2004, were falsified. I experienced a constant disclosure from Mrs. Pam Mobley by Jim Harris III and Stephen K. Simpson in a repeated attempt to create a disorder. I, without any question, passed all of that. But she had to be filming. Had to be. No way. They did everything they could to create a disorder, and they were not successful with me. But I think the human studies professor is self-explanatory right there, how serious this is getting. This is getting into psychological malpractice. And it's most unusual, too, because it's actually Jim Harris III that is committing the psychological malpractice himself with a very powerful attorney. And I understand those medical records are falsified. Again, it could be anything that a human said. You're building the strongest legal case on me. I am still an invalid according to that location. Nothing would be corrected. I attempted to disclose my background. It was not allowed. She had such control over me, such a foothold. I was literally unable to even relate, only agree to only disregarding anything about my past, and only what was the wishes of Jim Harris III or the commissioner. It's very obvious that's the only thing they were interested in. There was absolutely no reciprocal communications allowed. I don't even question that they built up the strongest legal case they could on me. If I would have presented that up in Lake County, this never would have happened. They would have listened what I was looking for and render the services in exact context. They created all of this. The falsified medical records, I don't even question. I later learned about Pam Mobley. I will share that again. And what this experience has been, there was nothing. It's interesting, too, because they can legally and medically document. Legal. A judge. It's all under the control of the political environment and the most powerful medical, where the most serious boundary violations occur. It's very obvious she was attempting, Pam Mobley, to create a disorder, and I'm sure she had to be filming it. I'm sure she had to be. That's the absolute authority as far as the highest level of health. Unfortunately, there's many decades worth of mental health history, and I understand I never did commit a disorder. They would actually create the disorder. They would have to create it and document it legally, which is a real doozy of one. I would not believe anything like this was incorporated as a norm. And so by the time it was said and done, and that had gone on for almost 3 years with Stephen K. Simpson and Jim Harris III having me under their arm with a absolute professor of human studies, I finally, I probably put quite a bit of emphasis, which was not a disorder, but they created it as a disorder. It was complete negligence. It's more than that. It's building a legal case, the strongest, most powerful legal case possible. And it became very evident how loud that medical became as I continued to stay in touch with Jim Harris III. The truth is, all I was seeking was a PhD in vocational psychology, professional career counseling. That was it, and that's as honest as I can be. Everything with my background cannot be changed for over 40 years, and they're not anticipating that. This is an outsider coming into the state, so this is very much an incorporated norm. How many times did Jim Harris III is what it really comes out to be. That's the individual that's committed to psychological malpractice against me. It's very unique in this manner because in no way am I involved in anything, which is incredibly powerful in these southern states. The most serious boundary violations, and you don't have to do anything. They create them. They falsify the medical. It's obvious what the environment of the business practices and the ethics, why the attention span is so short. Their goal is they have to be filming and recording. They have to be. No way around it. I was put in a setting where they were attempting repeatedly to create disorders, and I passed them until finally, when I attempt to say, all I'm seeking is professional, that's probably what I said. I said, listen, the only thing I'm seeking is professional career. And at that point, obviously, she was the one, Pamela M. Mobley, a human studies professor at the university system out here in Alabama. And she is the one who took, when I said, listen, the only thing I'm going for is, at that point she created a disorder. She documented it, medically and legally. She told me, get out of here. I said, I invested $75,000 in it. And she said, I don't give a damn about you, is what she did. That's exactly what she did. Those psychological medical records are also falsified. Those are also falsified. Stephen K. Simpson, particularly Jim Harris III, is the individual who has committed the psychological malpractice. I wouldn't believe I'm saying what I'm saying today. I wouldn't believe it. I have absolutely no history of personality. You would have to replicate it at current, replicate it and get a reciprocal response from me. It would be very hard. You'd have to stereotype it. It would have to be what you believe. And that is exactly why I'm doing these videos right now, to make sure there is absolutely no chance of misunderstanding under any circumstance what's true about my background and me and what happened here. I started being in touch with Jim Harris III at least 3 times a year. I would say, by what I can tell, that would have been starting in 2007. I'm sure that's an accurate date right there, 2007. I'm just going by recollection, 2004. And let's see here. 2004, I'm sure by 2005, and it was 2006. So in 2007 forward, it was purely between Jim Harris III and me. And I was very clearly communicating, I need professional career. And he wouldn't let me talk that far. He just cut in, started talking all about mental illness. No matter how clearly I communicated it, he shifted to completely irrelevant substance. He is obviously documenting this, and it doesn't matter. They'll do anything. It's obvious those medical records, the result of that I'm an invalid that will need a psychiatrist to be able to release me to work. It's obvious not one single person, their attention span is so incredibly short for an ulterior motive. You cannot change 1986 to 2001. That's absolutely impossible on me. And the background I come from. All of that. They're making me appear as an incorporated norm out here. That's legally binding. Medically and legally binding. I must have been crazy to stay out here because I didn't know anything about anything like this. I wouldn't believe it. I learned this all, what I'm sharing with you. Jim Harris III has committed psychological malpractice many times against me. He's right up by the top of the Alabama state government at an exceptionally high level. The only one hires the commissioner, and look at the flow chart, and it's up there. It's very high up there. It's a dizzying array you expect just to communicate in the healthiest context, and what I've stated, they will create disorders with an ulterior motive. And legally, that is no way to disqualify. And I'm looking at really the highest level, at federal. These are servants, not criminals. And I have to honestly say, yes, falsifying medical records would be unheard of if that happened in Lake County. That would get around. Not out here. This medical is so incredibly powerful. Within a split second, it can take away everything that's true about your background, and obviously that's what's happened to me. All of it could have been healthiest context, exactly towards the intended purpose, and everybody would have been happy. That's what's Lake County. You would, unheard of. It's out. It's proving it. You cannot change what's true about my background. And so, I'm not sure exactly the date I found out of what was really going on here. And my estimation that if I, as I unzip these files and put them so they can be indexed with a simple search. All I gotta do is put in Bill Pryor, and I will come up with the exact date that I learned something. And another thing, I continued to be in touch with them, and I'll go on to 2008. I believe that's where I probably learned about Bill Pryor and President Bush and violating civil rights and tinkering with the mental health laws of many decades when none of this is medical. The most serious ones and twos are crossed to become the basis that is in complete irrelevance. That I have never experienced in my lifetime. I wouldn't believe I'm saying that. What I am communicating is 100% honest. It's not my belief. It's a fully incorporated norm out here. It's outright criminal. I don't even question. When I emphasize again, when you look at that vocational evaluation compared to what's really true about my history, that could all become medical and medically documented and submitted in court, and anything could happen. And I am very vulnerable to that at this moment today. It's completely out of control. The medical it is completely out of control. The medical, and I'm saying completely. The corruption is 100% out of control. I did not know that. I did not. It amazed me, and I will share it in 2008 about what this is to do with Bill Pryor and President Bush. I will probably have a very short one in 2008, number 5. Thank you. If I would have gotten what was really in the healthiest context for everyone, I would have been told, hey, head back up north. Without any question, if you're able to get yourself back in that environment. Absolutely not. It's self-will. I'll share it. I'm going. This probably would be one of the. Let's see how quick I can get these number 5s done. Thank you. Thank you very much for getting to know me. This never would happen in Lake County. It would never would be tolerated out here. It would take away your freedom. Just like that. The two parties, the judicial, the special interest, it's completely out of control. I've never experienced that in my lifetime, and I would never believe I was experiencing what I was right then. Thank you.